All right. So this is my good friend Daniel. Let me introduce you to my friend Daniel. And
Hello.
This is actually round 2 of us filming this because we filmed this earlier outside in the beautiful weather. And then we clicked, it was a great interview, and we clicked stop record, and then their file was corrupt. And I didn't prepare, and now I'm doubly recording, so we shouldn't have this issue, but we're also in my gear room now. This little corner is my gear room. And yeah, so that's a long backstory and introduction. This is my good friend Daniel, and he is patiently doing a second interview with me. So he's the best, and I really appreciate it. But Daniel and...
How many free backpacks?
Yeah, how many free backpacks? So there will... Yeah, I was like, oh, you definitely deserve... Let's get a beer for this next one. Then I went to the fridge, and I have no beer even. So I was like, oh, I'm really failing in friendship right now. Like, I'm racking up some major, like, IOUs in this interview, so... But anyways, Daniel is one of my good friends, and we actually just met, like, not even a year ago. I think the first time that we met was we had both signed up for this volunteer event through our works to go volunteer at Yosemite.
Yep.
So that was a really fun trip. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, saving Yosemite.
Yeah, saving Yosemite. We actually... It was funny because during that trip, we actually were supposed to cut down trees. And I remember when we got our instruction, we were like, I thought we would be like planting trees or something. But they were like, oh, no, we need you to cut down trees. And it was because...
the conifers were invasive.
Yeah. Like in this meadow area, apparently these conifer trees grow really, really tall. And it prevents the oak trees from being able to grow tall because the conifers grow too quickly, and they shade the area so that the oak trees can't grow. So, or I'm sure I'm messing that description up a little bit, but it was something like that.
That's exactly how it was.
So we bonded over killing trees.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. It was a really, really, really neat, like, every time I go to Yosemite, I'm just like,
why can't I cut down these trees?
Why can't why can't I be here all the time? But anyways, it's also like being in these environments. It's a great place to meet new friends, and that's where I met Daniel and got to know Daniel a little bit more. And during that weekend, I learned that he really enjoyed backpacking as well. And we were talking about some of the trips that you had gone on, and I think you had just gotten recently back from a trip or two before we met or something with one of your roommates.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So then I had gotten these permits to do this California 14er called Split Mountain. And it's a class 2, 14,000 foot peak. And I had really been looking forward to doing it. I had never done it before, never even attempted it before. And I couldn't convince anybody to go with me. And Michael had actually just recently torn his meniscus, and so he couldn't go. And so I was on the hunt for some friends to go backpacking with, you could say. And he was fresh blood, so he didn't know that I enjoyed doing things that are hard and like suffer-festy. And so I was like, oh, you like backpacking? I was like, you want to go backpacking with me? I have extra permits. And I hyped it up for sure. I was like, it's a California 14er, and
there's an escalator.
I was like, it's going to be great. So it's supposed to be amazing. And that's all true. But I also left out, I think I said it would be hard.
Yeah, and I'd never done a 14er.
Yeah, before. But you told me some of the mileages you've gone on, and so I was like, okay, I think like we can definitely do this. We can make it work. And he was down, so I dragged him along, and also I was like, this will be the most epic 14er to do as your first 14er, because he hadn't done a 14er yet.
I had no expectation that I would summit.
Yeah. So what were you thinking when I first invited you?
I was like, there's no way. I'd only done like 11,000 something feet, so I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to summit. But I'll give it a try.
Yeah, but he's always got that like I will at least try spirit, which is one of the things I like about Daniel the most. So we went out to Split. So this was I think it was like a few weeks later. after this Yosemite trip. We went to Split Mountain, and the first challenge we encountered was the drive, which...
Yeah, getting to the trailhead.
Getting to the trailhead was a whole adventure in itself because it requires like 4-wheel clearance, and we took my Jeep, and bless Daniel's heart, he like bared with me because I wanted to take photos of everything because I wanted to write about it later.
Right.
And
look at these rocks in front of
I
my
was like,
car.
we must document this because there was literally nobody wrote about this trail because it's kind of it's more obscure and there's not good information out there, and everything that we found out there on it was pretty old. Like 2012 or older, it felt like.
Prehistoric.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not that old. But pretty old in the sense, or it just wasn't very good. So we were sort of kind of like going off of very minimal information. And anyway, so we were surprised we made it to the trailhead. To be honest, because we had read some horror stories about what
everything's washed out, huge rocks.
And I'm not like a huge... Michael usually does all the 4-wheel driving when I do it, and he has a Miata.
Just perfect
so
for
he's
this.
not 4-wheel driving very frequently.
Yeah.
But anyways, we bonded over that. We went over some boulders. You always bond when you have to 4-wheel drive over things because there's a lot of like, should I go over this rock or this rock? Do you think I'm going to bottom out here or there? So like there was definitely some bonding there. And then we camped at the trailhead that night. And then, I think the next day we got started. And I remember you pulled out your backpack and I was just like, you were
impressed.
One of the things that I like to do and all my friends learn is I always bring a scale with me when I go backpacking. I do this mostly just for fun because I already know what my backpack's going to weigh. I've already weighed it ahead of time. But like I like to see like, hey, what does your pack weigh? And I like to weigh their packs and like poke fun at them if it's too heavy. But I wasn't expecting how heavy yours was going to be. How much did your pack weigh?
42 pounds, maybe.
42 pounds, yeah. And mine was like 29 pounds. And I just remember being like, what do you have in there, Daniel?
You're wondering what my secret was.
Yeah, I was like, like cast iron skillets.
Yeah. Gallon of water with it.
So we argued a little bit on that, but he was... he'd been backpacking for a while, so he was like pretty sure he needed everything in there. It's funny because he's like way more of an ultralight backpacker than me now. But at the time, like I remember you like felt like you needed all the things that you had in that bag. Like I remember having that discussion with you.
I need a trowel that weighs 1.5 pounds.
You were like, this trowel will never break on me. And I'm like, well, my trowel's really light.
I can cut wood with this trowel.
I was like, you don't need to cut wood with the trowel. But anyways, I digress. So that trip was one of like a very good trip, and that first day was really hard. It was like a very, very steep trail
1,000 feet per mile.
Yeah, like 1,000 feet per mile up to our campsite. And then we had plans to wake up really early in the morning. Mm-hmm. And we were going to summit Split Mountain the second day. And we woke up on time, and we were making okay pace, but we weren't quite going as fast as we wanted to. I mean, also, like, the trail's a little tricky to follow.
Right.
It's, like, just a bunch of boulders and stuff.
And then there was the rain forecast.
Yeah. Yeah, so we made it up. I mean, like, you probably don't know about Split Mountain, but there's this, like, really crumbly, like, steep cliffside. And one way is class 2, but everything else is like class 3, class 4. So you have to know where you're going up, or else you could end up on the wrong path. And it took us a little while because I think we started going up the wrong couloir at first, and then we kind of crossed over to the right couloir. So that took time because we kind of had to backtrack a little bit. So we were making slow pace. So we ended up on the ridgeline, and I think we were about 700 feet, maybe a mile left in the hike, which just feels like not very long, but the ridge was a little bit more technical to the very end. And, I think it was your first class 2 climb. And then I also knew that the forecast was going to be about it. And the clouds started to kind of like get bigger and darker.
They were
growing. And so I told Daniel, I was like, I think we should turn around. And he was riding the high of like, oh my gosh, we're almost there. We're gonna make it. This is so exciting. It's first 14er. Like, And I just totally came crushing down on his world. And I was just like, no, I feel responsible. Like,
Right.
I don't want to kill my coworker I just met, you know, on our first time. I feel like that looks bad. And so I was like, I really think we should turn around, because the last thing we want to do is be on the summit of Split and then be in a bad situation where we have to rush down, because you don't want to rush down this kind of terrain.
Not at all.
Yeah. And so we turned around to his dismay, but he eventually came around, like,
A few months later.
yeah, like, you eventually realized that there was some wisdom behind what I was saying.
That was my first 14er.
Yeah.
You know, the person leading the trip is hesitating. You know, I don't have a platform I can stand on to say, yes, we should actually march into the thunderclouds.
Yeah. And I'm always like, especially as I get a little bit older, I'm like always more erring on the side of caution, it seems like. But anyways, but after that trip, you went on to go do some other like exciting hikes and stuff. So what did you do after our Split Mountain hike?
So I went and did Williamson a few weeks later.
By himself.
By myself.
Yes. Which is another 14er, just to clarify.
Yes.
In California.
Yeah, it's the second tallest 14er after Whitney. And we were talking about this book for training, exercise, training for the new alpinism.
Yeah, training for the new alpinism.
And that proved just absolutely crucial, because I had never worked out my abs before, my core or my upper body. Like, why do I need to do that? I'm just marching on the ground. But with Williamson and on later summits, it became quite helpful.
Yeah, that book in particular, like, it's a great. I wouldn't say if you're just brand new to hiking and you don't necessarily have the drive to really like get an intense workout or complicate your workout yet, it's maybe a little overwhelming at that point, because it's a really big book, right?
Yeah,
and it has
400 pages or something.
Lot of information in it. But if you do have like that stoke and you want to take your backpacking or your climbing or your hiking to the next level, it's called Training for the New Alpinism, and it has a lot of climbing aspects to it. But it's also really great for hiking and improving your backpacking as well, that I think. It's one of like the best books I've ever read on training. That's Training for the New Alpinism. Just repeating it. But yeah, so you went on to do Williamson.
Yes, yeah. So I show up. It's like 6,500 feet at the trailhead. Drive on a dirt road in my Miata. Just enough ground clearance, just enough.
A Miata. One day he'll get an adventure mobile.
Probably not.
They just always had the Miata, a lifted Miata.
Yeah, exactly. And so from 6,500 feet, I went to Shepherd Pass at 12,000 feet. And, like those last few hundred feet, you walked 15 feet, you stop, and you breathe for like a minute, and then you go another 15 feet.
Yeah.
And I camped at Shepherd Pass, and then the next day there's a 6-mile loop that you do to Williamson. And that was... I took as long as you could possibly take, so 14 hours, whatever. I got back around sunset, and I learned that more than just having base camp and leaving your tent and sleeping bag behind, but also you shouldn't necessarily bring all this extra gear up the mountain.
Yeah, like minimal. You'll want a little bit of like emergency stuff with you,
yeah,
but like
definitely some things.
Yeah, you don't need as much.
But there were people who were just bringing water and snacks.
Yeah.
And I had 30 pounds, and I was carrying it up the side of Williamson. And it was at that point I realized I need to bring less stuff. This is too much.
Yeah. So it was morphed into he started having the ultralight mentality from that point.
Yeah, your initial jabs at me at Split weren't enough.
I made fun of him a lot. I was like, your bag's too big.
Yeah,
I think I made you pull out everything at camp. I was like, let's look at everything in your gear. And I was like, you don't need that. You don't need that. And
character.
And then you were like, I do need that.
Yeah.
But then eventually, Williamson, like you said, you eventually kind of learn what you do and you don't need or you don't use,
Right.
You're like, okay, I bring this every single time. I literally don't use it.
Right.
I mean, it's not to say that you don't have gear that you need for emergencies that hopefully you don't use, right? There's some things that you hope you don't use.
Right, absolutely.
But you will still bring anyways. And then, so you summited Williamson.
I sure did.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
He went solo, which wouldn't have been my recommendation for that 14er in particular, because it is a little bit more technical.
Yeah, there's some class 3 at the top.
Class 3, but you made some friends along the way, so you were able to do that part with other people, which is good.
Yeah, the summit day I had summit buddies the whole time.
Yeah. So it was interesting because, you had went from being this very traditional backpacker to starting to get a taste for the Alpine, which was really neat to see you kind of get really into that.
Yeah, well, after Split Mountain, when we turned back.
Yes. The regret.
Yes. I was thinking to myself, I really want to conquer this. I really want to summit this. And it was just kind of lit this little fire inside. It wasn't just, I'm just going to go hiking and take some photos. Yeah. It was, I want to summit this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That totally drives me too. It's more than just, I love being in a beautiful place. I will do a trail nice. Just for it to be beautiful and enjoyable. Those are definitely trips that I enjoy doing, but I also love doing the ones that push you a little harder and push you to try out new skills. You're not quite sure if you will make it or not,
the uncertainty.
Not will make it, you'll make it out alive, but you just don't know if you'll make it to the top or not. You're I don't know, but I'm going to have to just trust that I can do my best and I'm going to give it a shot. So then I had, then we became friends because I was well, Daniel can hang. And so we were going to I invited him to go do another 14er with me that I couldn't find anybody else to go do it with.
One was even harder.
It's very hard to find people who want to go suffer in the mountains with you. Yeah. And Daniel is the fun. So you hang on to the people that you do find that like it. And 1 second, because my battery is dying on my... We're going to take a momentary pause in this recording to fix the battery on my computer. All right, we're back.
We're back.
Yeah, I am full of just obviously I don't do this very often. So our first interview was so good and I'm just ruining everything afterwards. So I'm sorry, we're back. And we were talking about Middle Palisade and how I have no friends. No, I'm just joking. How Daniel is one of my few friends that actually likes enjoying to suffer in the mountains with me. And so we decided to go do Middle Palisade because I had permits. And we knew that Middle Palisade would be a bit more of a challenge.
Yes. Because
it's class 3 and the route finding is a little bit more difficult than other peaks that I had attempted. Mm-hmm. And I'm not used to leading trips. Also, that's a new skill for me. Usually when I've gone with when I've gone on more technical alpine climbing routes, I've gone with Michael and I've gone with people who are good at or better than me, So there's a point where you're hiking with people who are better than you, so you always kind of feel like you're relying on them. And then when you transition to relying on your own skill, you're you can do it, but it feels different because you feel more responsible for the people you're with. And then you feel you're making all the decisions, so it feels a little bit more tough. So we were going out there, and then now you have Williamson under your belt.
Yeah.
So you're I was okay, we've got this. But for some reason we decided, and this is something I never advocate, but we did this anyways. I didn't follow my own advice, but we drove up the same day mm-hmm. from sea level. We drove up to the trailhead and started our hike the same day. And really what I recommend if you're coming from the sea level like we are is to spend a day at 6,000-ish feet. Camping helps a whole lot to adapting to altitude. But we didn't do that.
No, we were pressed for time.
We were pressed for time. So we made our way to... Well, when we started, I started having bad altitude sickness, and it was also really hot that day, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was warm.
And those were just some of the initial issues. I was going really slow because I was altitude sick, but I was I kind of know myself. I know when I can keep going, and I felt fine to keep going. I just knew I need to hike slower. But then we also took a wrong turn at one point.
We did.
Yeah. And because we Daniel's really easy to talk to, and so we were talking, and I always keep my GPS on and tracking, but I wasn't paying attention to it. And at one point, I made a left turn, and he followed me. I guess it's my fault.
Following
really.
the leader.
It really is my fault. So I made a left turn, and we were just talking. And then we start bouldering, and then we start like doing like more intense rock climbing moves. And I was like, I'm like, Daniel, hold on. And I was like, this is getting a little. I don't think we're supposed to encounter class 3 yet on this
trail.
hike. I was like, maybe the trail has changed. Maybe there was rock fall and something happened. So we thought maybe that was it. But then I looked at my GPS and I realized we had gone off route and we'd gone up this gully, and that's why everything was really bad, crappy. And so we had to turn around. And so we were already really like behind because I was slow, because of the altitude sickness and the heat, and then we made the wrong turn. So we ended up having to change our plans. Yeah, and we camped at what lake was
Bernard
it?
Lake.
We had to camp at Bernard Lake, and our initial plan was to camp at Finger Lake, which is really close to the base of Middle Palisade, which would have been our ideal, because then you can just wake up in the morning and then you're tackling the mountain, essentially.
Right?
Yeah. And instead we were like, I don't remember how many feet or miles, but it's like a mile-ish away.
Yeah, like 800 feet below.
800 feet below. So It's like, had to wake up extra early the next day.
Right. Full of energy.
Yeah. Long story short, like, I was kind of bummed that all these things that had happened. We were having a good trip. It was really beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, really. And there's not that, like, we were one of the only people out there.
Yeah, we practically had it to ourselves.
Yeah, we practically had Bernard Lake to ourselves. And I think we ran across maybe one or two other groups that were day hiking, but mostly, like, there was nobody out there. And then, I don't know, the next morning we woke up early and we went to the base of Middle Palisade. I think we got to the glacier. And I made the call. I was just like, I had gotten my head so much about how the things hadn't gone the way I wanted them to. Like, my checklist of perfecting, like, being a perfect leader on this trip wasn't panning out. And I started, like, doubting myself being able to lead somebody. And I, like, so that's all, like, it's really all part of it. Like, you think.
It's very mental.
Yes, it's very mental. And sometimes you think you've gotten over certain obstacles in your climbing or hiking life, and then you add in a new wrench, like being the lead of it, right. And then you like realize you haven't gotten over things. So, and it's the same with like going solo. I imagine like you are faced with having to make all the decisions yourself too, right? Because you do a lot of solo stuff.
Yes, but I guess I've never felt. There's a difference in that I never feel responsible for
somebody
anyone.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only when I did Split Mountain like, later, and I had a summit buddy, and I was more experienced than him.
Oh yeah,
and
then you felt responsible.
I did feel responsible, but I wasn't as compassionate as you are.
But you didn't know him either. Right?
No, I had no idea who this
person
person
on the trail,
was.
So. I was like, I work with this guy. If I hurt him, like, the people are going to be upset. You know?
Yeah,
it's going to be bad. But anyways, we turned around on Middle Palisade. So this last year in the mountains, it humbled me a little bit because I had to like make some hard decisions and not summit the peaks when I wanted to, and yeah. So, but then it was really interesting because kind of Daniel got the stoke like really hard for alpine climbing and summiting 14ers, and like the next thing I know, he just starts like pounding off all these different 14ers. And like, what did you go do after that? Like, okay, so you did Split,
right?
You went back and did Split.
Yes.
In Middle Palisade, right?
Yeah, I came back. I went. So after we left Middle Pal, we went to that East Side Sports place.
Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
And you pointed out some great shoes.
Yeah, we had been talking on that trip like it might have been better if you had some better shoes. So it was good maybe that we didn't do Middle Palisade the day that we did it.
I had the wrong shoes for that trip, absolutely.
It's more like it'd be better to have grippy shoes. So we went to that East Side Sports right after we walked back down to the car, and you bought them like on the spot.
Boom.
Yeah.
So I went back to Middle Palisade a couple weeks later, and I was in better condition I was really hitting the gym really hard.
Yeah.
Now I had my perfect shoes, and I was able to summit. the things didn't go exactly according to plan, but I did make it to the top and back.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Like, I mean, again, he did it solo, which I'm always like hesitant on these like more technical peaks, but he did it. He's alive. He's here.
That's right.
But you learned some important lessons on Middle Palisade. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Every time I've done a peak solo or where I was leading it, I walked away with a life lesson. Just not something you can say about every experience that you have.
Yeah. The mountains are like that a lot.
Yeah. So when I camped at Finger Lake and I picked up a summit buddy, and so on the day of, we go and we get to the Red Rock route, which is the easy class 3 route going up, the easiest route. And we see the Red Rock and we think, okay, well, that's what we go up. So we don't even check our GPS to make sure that's actually it, because it's not actually it. You go up the route immediately to the right to it.
Yeah.
But we went up the Red Rock, which is actually class 4.
Yeah.
So we're halfway up. My summit buddy goes, yeah, no, and he turns around.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm going to just go a little bit further.
Okay.
Let me just check this out. So I go a little bit further, I pop out, and I see the class C route. I'm like, wow, that looks way easier.
Okay.
So I just kind of traverse over there and get into the class 3 route, spend the next 3 hours just using my whole body, my legs and my arms and my core especially, just basically rock climbing up the side of this class 3 slope. So Williamson has 100 feet of class 3 at the very top. Middle Pal has 1,000 feet, pretty much from the bottom to the top. It's all class 3.
Yeah, it's a full-on commitment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an enormous workout. So I get to the top, encounter day hikers, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then I start my descent, and I can't find my way off the mountain.
Yeah.
Because I went up the class 4 route, and I couldn't down climb class 4.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know that. So I'm looking for the route. Like, where is it? And my GPS is telling me that, oh, well, you're 80 feet from the edge of the mountain. I'm like, well, how is that possible? So I up climb to where I can look down and I confirm that, yes, I'm at the edge of the mountain. Like, well, how do I get off? So I had tracks on my GPS. So I'm basically following the steps, step for step. I walk 10 feet, check, walk 10 feet, check. And I get to this chute, and I'm like, well, that can't be it. And I'm checking the GPS, and like, this is it. This is the class 3 chute. And it was so much easier. Class 3 is so much easier than class 4.
So you went up a class 4?
Unknowingly.
So he wasn't checking his GPS on the way up, but he checked it on the way down.
Yeah, so once I realized that I wasn't getting off the mountain, and now I learned, on summit day, you don't have time to spare.
Yeah. You
have to get off in a certain time frame.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck, and you don't want to be stuck on something like that and it get dark on you, because you're going to be stuck. You're going to have to hang out on the mountain until
it gets cold.
You can see. I mean, I guess you could try it if you had a headlamp and stuff, but it would be dangerous.
Right.
So
I wouldn't want to down climb class 3 in the dark.
Yeah.
Even with headlamp.
Yeah. That's why it's like really important to get to the summit before, if you know there's going to be bad weather, like before the weather, so you can get off the summit before the weather. And same with the time, like you have to be very aware of your time. That's why it's good to set hard deadlines of like when you turn around, because you're like, it's taking me this long to get up. Sometimes down can take you even longer.
Right.
So I don't know if it took you longer to get down.
It took me 2 extra hours
to get down
because I basically got lost on the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get down, the sun setting, and I hike back with a headlamp and my GPS. And it was a very unique experience because in the day you can just see where it cliffs out, so you don't walk over there naturally. But in the dark, you don't know that. Yeah. So you just meander off your GPS a little bit, and you cliff out, and you're like, oh, well, I need to go back and get back on the trail again, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. So while I'm not satisfied that he did that by himself, he learned a lot, and you're a better climber and hiker now because of that. Like, taught you a lot of things. I remember you telling me everything. You're like, oh, I've learned so many hard lessons from that trip. And I was like, yes, definitely do those things.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, it is good to, so Daniel knows really well, how to use his GPS, and that's a skill he's learned beforehand. So fortunately, he's able to, lean on that skill when he needed to. But there's some choices like we could have made, beforehand that maybe would have prevented like the panic, I guess, at the top, right? Which you've learned now.
Yes.
Yeah. So, then so you did Middle Palisade, and did you do any other 14ers?
So after that, I went back and did Split.
Yeah.
And then I did Tyndall, and those are all in 3 weekends back to back.
Yeah. So he got the bug hardcore. Before we move on into kind of where you've gone to next, just tell us a little bit about how did you even get started, or what drew you to backpacking and outdoor adventure in general?
Well, I came from Houston.
I came from Houston too.
What?
This is why we're friends.
Yeah. And in Houston, there's not any backpacking to do, whereas California, there is a tremendous amount of backpacking.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like this is something I should take advantage of while I'm here, regardless of anything else. So I already had some gear, and I went out on a hike to Shredder Peak. It's 10,000 feet. It's basically a pile of rock on top of a hill, something special. And I go out there in Sequoia National Forest, and I hike, and I'm hiking, and I see the peak, and I'm walking by it, and I realize that I've not taken a turn or something, and I pull out my directions, and there's some cairns that I was supposed to have turned at, and I didn't even know what cairns were.
What did you call it earlier?
Cairns.
Cairns. In our first interview, you called them cairns. I was like, wait, Karens?
Yeah. Tomato.
So yeah, the Karen thing.
Yeah. And since it was my first hike, to me, it's I was not going to get off the trail and just start hiking because I had no confidence that I could get back to the trail.
Yeah, which is smart.
Yeah.
As a brand new hiker.
Right. Let me just go off trail and hope I make my way back. So I turned around, I went home, bought a GPS.
Learned how to use the GPS.
Learned how to use the GPS. Didn't know how to use Caltopa yet.
Yeah.
And then I came back the next weekend and summited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
And then you were like, I want to do more of this. Or your friend, your roommate had...
Yeah, my roommate backpacks as well.
So did he have backpacking gear that he let you borrow at first? Or did you just you were all in? You were like, I know I like this, and you just bought gear.
So I had gear for hiking.
Okay.
And so after that, after I did a few hikes, I started buying gear for backpacking. I guess I need a sleeping pad or something.
Yeah. It's kind of I feel like usually you just know. You're like, I know I will like this. Because I was kind of the same way. I mean, I had never backpacked before, and my friend invited me backpacking, and I was like, well, this is the time I buy backpacking gear because this is going to be my new life. I had just decided in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be an outdoorsy person. I would like that. I think. I don't know. So I bought all the gear, immediately. I mean, not all the gear. I definitely had some pretty crappy...
Spaced out a little bit.
Yeah, wearing whatever clothes I thought I could manage without upgrading, but you know how that goes. So, what has been one of your favorite memories from backpacking and these trips over?
I would say that summiting Middle Palisade was a tremendous experience because, at least compared to my other summit being Williamson, it was so different. All the mountains around it were so sharp. They had so much contrast with everything. It was the closest I've ever come to crying tears of joy. Tears of joy, mind you.
See, I've cried many times on the summit. Not usually tears of joy.
Yeah.
Tears of dear God, why am I here? No, I'm just kidding. But I have cried on the top summit at least 2 or 3 times. Usually 14ers.
It's emotionally cleansing, I imagine.
You're just exhausted. You're like, but that's great.
And so that with Middle Palisade just being so different from anything else I'd done before.
Yeah.
It was also one of those ones where it was a lot of type 1 fun.
Yeah. And
there wasn't a whole lot of type 2 fun. So yes, it was a slog, but I was in really good condition for that. Yeah. So it wasn't, there wasn't oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? When is this going to be over? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was all right, I'm getting to use all this training that I've been doing for months and months.
Yeah. there's like a really gratifying feeling in that, like feeling like, or when you do train and then you feel strong and you go out to do the thing, like there's such a big difference in going out there and just knowing that you can do it and you slog through it because you're like, I know I can do this. But when you train and you feel strong and you're just like, you're pounding it out and you just feel like nothing can stop you, like that's a great feeling.
Yeah, gaining 6,000 feet in a day and you're not even tired at the end of it.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, and then standing on the top of the summit and seeing like beautiful mountains in the distance, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it helps.
Well, what's been really awesome also is like Daniel has sort of, I guess it was funny because summer was coming to an end and he was like talking to me about how he doesn't want to stop being in, he's like, I'm in such good shape. Like how do I keep in good shape so that I can keep doing this next summer?
Back in the winter.
And I was like, well, like we climb in the winter, so we do a lot of climbing, but he really wanted to take like his backpacking skills sort of to the next level. And so you started learning mountaineering and ski touring, right? Or ski touring, is that the right word for it? Yeah, ski touring and backcountry skiing and stuff like that. Which actually, I like mountaineering, so I have done a bit of mountaineering in my past. I don't do it as much recently, but
boo.
Yeah. Well, it's just because the climbing is so good in the winter in California that it's really hard to like do all the things. So we've been climbing a lot more lately. But I do love mountaineering. But I've never done the ski, like backcountry skiing. So how has that whole like learning process been for you?
So it's all been very incremental. So, you know, like we were talking about, it was, okay, well, first I just want to keep backpacking and throughout the season. Yeah. So I bought all this like warm weather gear, snowshoes, what have you. And then it was, okay, well, route planning is a bit difficult in the snow because of variable snow conditions, and snowshoes don't react very well in powdery conditions and things like that. With skis, it's like, okay, how do I make sure I get back to work on Monday? So with skis, that becomes much less of a problem because if it's icy, if it's powdery, it doesn't really matter generally. Yeah. You can still do the same mileage regardless of the snow conditions. So that was why I wanted to do ski touring, because I had done Big Pine North Fork. I've done it 3 times now. Yeah. Trying to get to the Palisade Glacier. And I'm going to try one more time, and hopefully I'll make it there.
Before the season ends?
Before the season ends.
Okay. Yeah, and you've done, like, so you did that. You've been, like, building your skills, basically, this winter. You've been doing the snowshoeing and the winter camping, and you've been getting better, lighter gear and 4-season gear. Mm-hmm. And then you recently did Mount Whitney, the Mountaineers route on Mount Whitney, which is a great Mountaineers route, or great mountaineering route. Yes. And then you did a ski touring trip.
Next weekend.
The next weekend after that. Yeah. So he's been on a freaking roll, just like crushing it in the mountains. And it hasn't like, the thing that's been amazing is that it hasn't even been a full year. So I just want to like put that into perspective to somebody who thinks it's going to take a long time, like to learn these things. It's like, no, you just have to have the stoke and the burning desire to like keep learning and keep pushing yourself, and you really can transform yourself from being like, I mean, you said you started day hiking, it was maybe a year before we met, right? Yeah. So 2 years, and now you're doing like crazy stuff that you probably never would have imagined.
Right. It was after we did our attempted split, that was when the rate of the trajectory kind of increased a little bit. Yeah. Before it was like, yeah, I'll just go hiking, whatever, go backpacking. But now it became, how far can I take this?
Yeah, like you're just opens up, split kind of like gave you the curiosity to be like, what else can I do that I haven't thought of about doing? Yeah, what else am I capable of? And that's really awesome. So let me see, I just have my notes here. So what do you feel like is driving you to keep doing bigger things in the mountains? So
I've known myself for a while, longer than most people, and I know that at some point I'm going to fall off the wagon and not be doing this anymore. And so in recognition of that, it's...
You know you're going to fall off the wagon?
I know I'm going to fall off the wagon.
We're different in this way because I'm like, I will never stop doing this.
Never.
No, I'm going to be one of those old people in the mountains with like 10 dogs and
cat.
llamas, maybe hiking in the mountains until till I have no knees to do it. So, but I will write letters with photos to my friend Daniel, who fell off the wagon.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, it's so fun.
So you want to, basically you're saying though, you want to take advantage of the now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know how long I'll be in California. I don't know how long I'll have an interest in it. And for me, it's kind of that as long as I am constantly trying something different or basically improving, I know that I won't get, I know I won't fall off the wagon. And that, so you're just kind of pushing to the next level. It's when I kind of plateau and I'm just doing the same thing.
You get bored?
I might get bored. There's more possibility for it.
We're different, but it's been awesome to see you like have that drive you to, because you've done some big things with it.
It's been a fun experience.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting to the 45-minute mark-ish, and so I want to ask you, like, if you were to give somebody who's new to outdoor adventure or new to backpacking, wants to get started, like, what would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
So I guess two things for me was having someone to show me, like, hey, a 14er isn't really that intimidating. Because I was in, my friend Joe was great.
Your friend Joe?
Yeah, I'm kidding. That was you.
Oh. I was like, wait, who's Joe?
So having someone who can show you that it's not as scary as you think it is invaluable.
Yeah.
But then like, after that, when I was starting to do winter backpacking, I didn't have a mentor or someone to show me the way.
Yeah.
It was just me.
I failed him. I was like, I'm climbing.
Right, yeah. Thanks, Allison.
I was like, he kept inviting me on these like miserable sounding negative 10 degree back or camping trips. And I was like, tempting, but the weather in Bishop is good right now.
Type
so I'm
2
going to be
fun.
climbing.
You know you want it.
But yeah, like.
Yeah, so I was building on my previous experience in backpacking, doing baby steps, incremental gains. And that allowed me to venture off into new areas without someone to show me exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
But also, the consequence of getting it wrong isn't all that great in the sense that, okay, this trip it's going to be 10 degrees colder than last time. Like, if I was ready for what I experienced last time, I'm not really putting myself in a dangerous position. Whereas if I'd only experienced 30-degree weather and I'm like, let me go try -10, then things might not go so well for me.
Yeah, so like when you're starting out, it's like some people use the excuse of not having anybody to show them ropes as a reason why they shouldn't keep pursuing what they want to learn. And like I feel like that's the biggest mistake. You have to start doing the thing you want to do, even if it's baby steps. Like you said, like even if it's just taking it one extra step further than you've done before. But you keep making progress because the only way you're going to get to be the person that you want to be, which is like a badass mountaineer person or like whatever your dream is, I don't know.
You get that on the t-shirt.
Badass mountaineer person. Yeah. Then you just have to keep like learning your skills. And with and he understood also like as far as mountaineering goes, that he needed to learn extra skills maybe from somebody else, and he took guided tours to learn those skills because those are important to learn those skills correctly, and you do want to make sure you're doing them right. But there's no reason you can't ever make forward progress, and your excuse that you don't have somebody to mentor you should never be an excuse. Like there's always a way to learn more and build your skills and get better. So I think that's a great lesson. But we hope that this one actually records because we are not going to be recording a third video.
Fingers crossed.
But I want to thank Daniel for doing this twice with me. And we did a shorter interview this time than last time. So unfortunately, nobody will know the first interview. It was so good.
How good it was.
Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you, Daniel,
Thank you for having me.
Being on here on my video interview in my gear room. So
I look forward to the royalty checks.
Yes. Oh, I owe him the royalty checks this year. But have a good night, you guys.